Hello guys, my name is Padi from beginner to pro.in. In this video tutorial, I'll teach you how to fetch the data from the database and make a line graph. Okay, it's totally different from the offline one because in offline we have already data is present, means we give manual input. Okay, the but in the case of database fetching, we have to first fetch the data from the database. After all, we have to make a graph, otherwise the graph will not be correct one. It will show a blank. Sometimes it will show the result, other times it will not. So most of the people face this problem because they simultaneously create the graph while fetching the data, which is not possible. So I'll first of all we will fetch all the datas from the database and will print into a text edit, so that we'll know that how the datas are fetching and the datas that are fetched is correct or not. First of all do that. We'll move on phase by phase so that we'll have less chances of error. Okay, so let's begin with the new project. So now our Java file is also ready. We'll make a new class. New Java class, name as background task. The work of this background task is to get the data from the database and provide it to the main activity. Okay, so here our background task will extend it with async task. The work of this async task is to get the data from the database. Okay, string, then void, then again string. No, it's not required. So now we will override three methods, that is do in background. First one is do in background. Then we will uh, get the second method on post execute, on pre execute, and on progress update. Okay, so string do in background. Okay, make it as parameters. Then on post execute. Okay, then on pre execute, then on progress update. So on post execute, what will happen after executing, means it will get the data into this variable result and it will pass this result to the main activity for the further process. Okay, rest of all leave it as blank. So now we'll first create two functions. okay, that is interface async response, okay, which will actually this will pass the values to the main activity, okay, so that there will be further process in the main activity. It's better to pass the value to the main activity than doing it here. Here also you can do it, but you'll face a lot of problem later, so that's why I'm suggesting you to just pass the values to the main activity. Okay, now we'll do further process. Look, it's error free. Now I'll do public interface async response, sync response. um, okay, it's correct. Void process finish string output. Okay, from here the value will be passed to our main activity, but still we have more to write. Public async response, okay, delegate equal to null, then background task, um, sorry, background, oops, sorry, that's small b, background task, name of this class, async response, then delegate. Okay, this dot delegate equal to delegate, um, delegate. So now it's error free, so we are clear to go ahead. So now we are moving to do in background. So in do in background, actually in do in background it will fetch all the data from the database. So for that, string type, okay, the type I'm using because if you are using multiple what multiple database fetching, like you are fetching the graph from here, you are fetching the login credentials from this class, because I'm declaring type here because if the type is equals to this process you want to do, then it will execute only that sequence of code. So that's why I'm declaring type here. Okay, so then string URL, okay, xyz, leave it blank. Well, after creating the PHP file, I'll show you uh, how to put it here and get the data from here. Okay, so after giving the URL, we'll check for the type. Type dot equals, we are doing it for graph, right? So graph, then what we are fetching is just say your table name, okay, or you can fetch the ID of the user of which you want to fetch the data, like particular ID. If you want to fetch the data of that particular ID, you have to pass the ID here, but as I'm showing you to fetch all the datas, not of the particular ID. So I'm getting the table name from the main activity. Okay, these are all we are getting from the main activity, parameters 1. Okay, then URL uh, URL, let's say um, what appropriate name should I give? URL fetch new URL. Oops, sorry, new URL. I'm giving that URL. Okay. Um, there are okay. Surround with try catch. Okay. The further we have to again surround it with the try catch. So uh, but if copy this one and paste it here, better to keep it inside. Then HTTP URL connection, HTTP URL connection, HTTP URL connection. What to do? I have to fetch dot open connection. So now I have opened the connection. Again we have to surround it with the catch clause. Okay, fine. HTTP URL connection dot set request method to post. Okay, actually keep it in double quotes. We are posting the data to the PHP file. That's why it's uh, the type of the process is post. That's lot many processes like post or get, right? So set do output, set do output true, do input also set do input also true. Okay, for the output stream equals to HTTP URL connection dot get output stream. It will get the output from the PHP file, right? Then again we have to make a buffered writer buffered writer equals to new buffered writer. Okay, it will now write it to the buffer memory. Okay, so we are using buffered writer. That's why again new output stream writer, right? Okay, output stream, that we are streaming the output into the format UTF-8. You must have known this format, right? We are using it in HTML, UTF-8 charset format. Okay, then string UTF-8, then post data. Okay, here we'll specify, in here we'll specify what the data that we are posting to the PHP. Okay, so URL encoder dot encode. Now we are encoding it into UTF-8 format because the HTML only knows the popular, or not only knows, the popular format we are using it in HTML is UTF-8 cassette format. Okay, so that's why we are encoding it into the UTF-8, because before it's not already encoded into UTF-8 format, so we have to encode it. Plus equals to, and okay, URL encoder dot encode. What we are actually sending is table. Okay, so we are sending this table value to the, oops, sorry, make it as table. I've made it email table, and this sending the value of table to this table variable, which is going to send the data to the PHP, because in PHP we have to define the variable name from which we will get the data. That's why I'm defining the variable name as table. Okay, table again to UTF-8. Okay, so that's a no more. So up to here, if you have lot more data, then plus, and then plus, then again just copy and paste, then control V. Okay, you are sending the data name table1 table, because I have not any variable, further more variable to describe you here. Just if you are getting the like say ID from the main activity, just define it an ID from params2 and define it here. Okay, if, because for the multiple posting of the data you need to do like that. So now we have finished with the post data. Further more lines, buffered writer dot write post data. So now it will write so now again we will flush the buffered writer, so that there will not be any garbage value or mess with the data. Then we will close the buffered writer. Make sure to flush it, otherwise there may be problem, so it's better to flush the buffered writer. Okay, now we'll define input stream, because now we are going to get the input from the PHP file, because previously we have sent the required data to the PHP. Now the PHP will send that we require from the database. Okay, stream http url connection dot get input stream. So this much only. Now buffered reader. Okay, buffered reader, because we are going to store the data into the buffered reader. New buffered reader. Okay, then new, like that, input stream reader, input stream to the format that our Android Studio requires, ISO 88591. This is the format that our Android Studio understands, or any of the application. Okay, string result. So we will now save the buffered reader, where the data stored into the buffered reader, to the result. So we will string line blank, right, then while again line uh, equals to buffered reader, not writer. Okay, dot read line, okay, not equals to null, result plus equals to line. Okay, so now it will embed all the lines to the result. Never exist. What is this? Okay, now we'll close the buffered reader, dot close, and close the input stream also, and disconnect the URL connection, so that there will not be uh, any of the mess with to the connection. Okay, okay, so now we are done with the do in background. Okay, there's no error what's above it. So now we'll write for the unpost execute. What will happen after we get the data? Nothing. We'll just send this to the activity where we are accessing it. That's all. Finish. Because it will send to that activity only where you, in which activity you are calling it. If we'll send to a particular main activity, then it will be a great problem for us. So it's better to send the result to that activity from where we are calling it. Okay, so in the next phase I'm going to teach you how to create a PHP file and assign it here. Okay, so uh, in this tutorial only I'll teach you. So now let's begin with creating a PHP file. For that you have to install your WAMP server, your offline server, or else you'll have to make a free server from any of the vendors. Many vendors are there. From any of the vendor uh, like 000 web host or Googie host, from which I use, or else you have to purchase a paid account from any of the vendor like GoDaddy, uh, Hosting Raja, many more are there. So we'll now proceed to create the PHP file and table. Okay, so guys, let's begin with the next phase. Now first foremost thing you have to do is to allow the application to access the internet. Otherwise, from the very beginning your application will stop working. Uses permission, just android.permission.internet. Okay, so now we have accessed the application, we have permitted the application to access the internet settings. Okay, so now we have to move on to our database or server if you have anyone, so that we'll write the PHP code there and we'll uh, put the URL here. So I have already opened my uh, panel. Okay, this is my panel. First of all, we'll create a table to access the database primary, it is as primary, and we'll make one as days, okay, and another as data, and save it. Here we'll make a file graph.php. So graph.php. Now I'll insert two datas. First day, let's say 35. Second day 50. Go. So we have inserted two datas to the server. Here we'll write our PHP code just to access that database. Connection.php, you have to make a connection file. I couldn't show you because it's secret. So let's get the data from the table. As I have shown you, we are getting the data from the variable table, right? So table $_post and table. So we have received the data. Now SQL query, select star from $table. We can write direct the table name, but what's the use of defining this table? So for that only I'm using this. You can use your use idea of our own. Now after compiling this, I am going to first of all create an array, okay, where else, because we are going to JSON encode those datas, okay, otherwise we'll not be able to access those datas in the that Android, right? Rows MySQL fetch array query, okay. Now array push, we are now what we are doing here is that we are pushing the array to the variable $result, okay. Array, here let's say first is our days, $rows, let's say 1, because the first row we are going to accessing. The 0th row is the our ID, which we don't need to access. Datas to $rows, sorry, uh, second one, okay. So we have successfully pushed the array. Now echo JSON underscore encode array. We are encoding the array. Here response. I'm writing this because we need to check the data in our app that it is correctly printing or not. So for now I'm just changing this to graph, okay, because I'm going to check this, okay. So 1 to 3550, we also graph dot look, days 135 to 50, okay. So we are getting those data. Now I'm going to print these datas to my Android. So here books, sorry, tps books corner dot and slash graph dot php. Okay, so from this url, for to this URL we will sending this data, um, table name, blah blah blah. So now I'll change this to dollar table, right? Okay, save changes. Okay, so now on to main activity. Here we need to show the data, so we need to declare a text view. Okay, I've already text view there, because while creating the already by default a text view is present, so I have just assigned a id graph text. Okay, graph underscore text. Now we will text view tv will access that object of the text view. Here equals to text view find view by id dot id dot graph text. So you have accessed, now access that text view. So what now will do that, will call that background task. Okay, we'll call that background task, so that it will return a value to this main activity. Okay, so background task, let's say uh, background task to background task dot sorry new background task. Okay, then again new background task, this one async response. Okay, here we need to write dot execute, what it's going to execute. Okay, for this we are just passing these variables in the data we are now going to pass it here is directly going to the background task do in background. Okay, we are getting those variables into these parameters. So our zeroth parameters is what, type. So type is what, graph. When it will get the type graph, then it will enter this if condition. That's why I'm getting graph. Then first parameter is the table name, so we need to write the table name. What is our table name? Graph, same graph. So we have sent the data to the background task. Now what we need to do is, if output not equals to null, right? If the output, because sometime what happens that the server gets down, or the because of the server down our app may crash. Okay, that's why if the data is not null, then only it will set the text to that output. If it's null, then your app may crash. That's why I did that. Set text, it will show error. Okay, so now everything is okay, there's no error. So I'm going to connect my device. So we got our data here. Okay, days 135 to 50. So now we have successfully fetched the data to our device. Now the next phase begins. The next phase is to get these numbers from these variables separately, because we have fetched the data in the form of JSON encode. We have just encoded it. Okay, so we don't need that. We need this numbers to get these numbers from these variables, and will store into another variable in our Android Studio, this app. Okay, later on, which will provide these values to our graph. Okay, so that the graph will be successfully built. So let's begin with the next phase. So guys, now we will move to our next phase, that is to extract the values from the variables and pass it to the line chart. Okay, so as I have removed my text view, so from here you also remove your text view and its object. Else, in the else part, just write toast dot make test get application context, write um, connectivity error, and toast dot length long dot show. On the connectivity error, it will show this message. Okay, so now we will get extract those datas. So as we have JSON encoded already, so we have to JSON decode it here. Okay, for before that, first of all we have to uh, write the repositories and the dependencies to uh, bring that line chat here from the GitHub to here. Okay, so repositories maven URL https zpack.io. Okay, after that, here I have already copied it from the net. So you watch it, just pause the video and type it again and sync now. It will now sync our project. Okay, now our sync is complete. Now move on to activity main. Down here, write line chart com.github. It will show of that GitHub. Okay, right click here, width match parent, and height make it also match parent. Okay, so here assign it a ID line underscore chart and make it visibility invisible, because the reason is that we have to make it invisible because when the data will be fetched and loaded to the graph, after that it has to be shown, not before that. Okay, if we'll show before that, then the user have to click on the graph. The user have to click on the graph to redisplay the materials or the datas, right? So make it invisible. You can also try it by making it visible, so that you will know what the error will occur. Okay, so after that we need some of the JSON elements, okay, to decode those uh, what those datas that we have obtained. So first of all, define a line chart of GitHub line chart, then JSON array, JSON array, then object JSON object. Okay, so that we will decode that, because the result we have obtained is in the form of JSON, so you have to decode that and get those values. Okay, then here write line chart we have to define the ID of that line chart here, so that we can access that object line underscore chart. So we are ready to access that object in the XML file, right? So here as we are extracting two values, we will keep x axis as days, okay, and on the y axis we will plot the points. Okay, so let's start with that. So okay, so in the x-axis, array list it is the type of integer, so x-axis new array list, right? Another one will be the type of entry, which is com.github. Okay, because there will be the point which are going to be plotted must be of entry type. Make sure of that. Okay, new array list. So we have assigned those two array list, where because we need an array to store the values, right? Otherwise how will store so many those values into one variable? Isn't it possible, right? So yeah, one more thing, I have forgotten to define another array list of iLine dataset. Okay, line datasets, where it will draw the line array list. Okay, it will now draw the line. So now we have to get those datas, extract those datas. We have already those datas, right? So now JSON object, wait, okay, JSON object equals to new JSON object. Okay, what we are going with is the JSON derived object. Okay, that is the output, because the output which I have shown you by printing it in set text is the JSON uh, JSON encoded values, right? That's why we have to give it on JSON object to decode that, which makes sure to surround it with try catch. Okay, then JSON array to store those JSON object, because we have already decoded it, dot get JSON array. The string name is response. Okay, the string name is response because we have uh, uh, we got the values via those variable. That string name is the response, because you have to first of all define an variable name that I have defined as response. So we have to define it here response, because I have shown you that there in the app, in the you can just watch it earlier, that we have um, got the values in response, because once you can again run that old app to see that there must be written response, then curly braces, then the values. Okay, I have defined it as response. Okay, let me show you. What's it? Response, right? Here in the response we are uh, traversing the values to the response. Okay, so we got the values. Now we have to assign a counter, so that it will because two datas are there, right? So the counter loop will run until the two datas, not more than that. So that's why. And I have to assign I datas another to integer, where I'm going to store those days and datas. Okay, because that is JSON encoded, right? So we have to extract those. While uh, sorry, count less than JSON array dot length. Okay, JSON object jo to JSON array dot get JSON object count. So here we have assigned an object jo, which will extract the data. Okay, so where we are going to extract is I days equals to jo dot get int. Okay, because the data we are retrieving is of integer type, that's why it is get int. Okay, days and datas are also dot get datas are also of integer type, that's why int. And these two variables we have assigned it here, days and datas, mixture of it, otherwise you will face error. Okay, so after that what we have to do is we have to add these two datas to the array list. One is of integer, one is of entry. Okay, the plotting, we are going to plot the datas, that's why we have to put it in entry type, integer, which will show it in the x-axis. So I days as I days dot add sorry, this x-axis dot add I days. Okay, these are going to be plotted in x-axis, and y-axis is of entry type. Okay, that's why it's not, you can add directly. Okay, you have to use entry, that is new entry, because that was entry type. You have to add a new entry, and that I datas comma count. Okay, now we have added both to the arrays. Now count plus plus, otherwise the loop will not run. After fetching all the datas and decoding those datas, after that only we have to call the graph. Okay, um, line chart dot set visibility to visible, right? After giving the data to the graph, only it will be visible. Before that it will be invisible or of gone type, right? It's showing error because graph we have not created that function. Public void graph. Yep. So now it's error free. Here we have to personalize the graph. Okay, so remember one thing, in this line graph your x-axis must be the type of string. Okay, so here when I'm creating an array of string, okay, so that I'll be able to plot it. New string, so let the size be y-axis dot size, okay, x-axis dot size for int I equals to 0, I less than x-axis dot size I plus plus. Right, here we have to feed those x-axis datas to axis. Okay, make it x-axis, right? So x-axis, because it must have to be the string type, otherwise it will show an array. Sorry, x-axis dot get index is I dot, as it is of string type, that's why to string, error free, right? Always keep in mind that you have to do work phase by phase and error free, otherwise you'll face problem. Again, data set line data set equals to new line data set. What you are going to plot? We are going to plot the y-axis, right? Y-axis comma, name it, you can name it as data blah 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 xyz, anything of your own. So then line data set dot set draw circle, it will draw circles on the points, that is 35 and 50, we have assigned the points, so it will draw circles on the 35 and 50. Set color dot red, it will be of red color. Okay, after that line data sets. Okay, here we have defined an array line data sets. Okay, here we have to define that line data sets. Okay, here it's showing array I line data set dot add, because that one is also an array list, right? So here what we are going to add, this line data set. Remember that this is sets and this is set. Okay, don't get confused, because why we are doing this, because if you are plotting more than two or more than one datas, sorry, not datas, you are drawing more than one line chart. Okay, so for that you have to add the set of datas. Okay, set, like of the first graph you are making a population, second you are making their registration IDs. So for the population datasets it will store in the datasets, for that registration IDs it will again add. You have to again write line datasets dot add, don't make this same. Okay, you have to, if you are making another one, make it one, so that it will not overlap, otherwise it will not show both of the charts, it will just overlap one upon another. So line datasets dot add line dataset, we have added to the array. Now the last thing we have to do is line chart dot set data. Okay, we are now going to set the data. What we are going to set is new line data x-axis. Okay, not this x-axis, not this x-axis. Okay, this x-axis comma that y-axis we are going to put, so that will be line data sets. Okay, this line data sets, because we have added it to an array, right? So we have to define it here. What's it's error free. Okay, now we have to do some customization. Line chart dot set visible x range maximum. I'm defining maximum range of 65f, and chart dot set touch enabled true. Okay, the user can touch and then also drag enable. If you are adding 20 datas, then the user have to drag to watch those datas, right? So drag enable true. So now we have finished our whole project. Now let me connect my device and I'll let you show is it working perfectly or not. Look, it's taking some. Yep. So watch out, the datas are 35 and 50. Okay, and in this x we have plotted the point 1, because on the day 1 it is 35 and on the day 2 it is 50, right? Day 1 35, day 2 50. So I hope that you have understood the whole project. If not, you can comment below, I'm ready to help you. So guys, see you again, have a good day, bye bye, thank you.